Okay, we're here with Ellen Gunning of the PR Training Academy. She's the director of the PR Training Academy, and we're going to ask some questions about how they are responding to COVID-19. But I thought we'd start with a little bit of an introduction to yourself, Ellen, and your organisation, if we could.
Delighted to. Thanks for having me, Chris. PR Training Academy is a new bespoke academy. We created it, launched it in September of last year, 2019. And basically it provides online training to communications professionals. So the courses are short, bite-sized, maximum 3 hours, and very tightly focused. So they're things like how to train your voice for radio, how to write a feature article, what is public relations all about, how do you negotiate a sponsorship. So very, very targeted to the communications industry.
And so I take it all the courses are online. You don't do any physical face-to-face training?
All online. It's a membership model. So you join with 16 courses and you're guaranteed an additional 6 courses every quarter because communications is changing constantly. So we're constantly changing with it and updating with it. But we had no plans ever from the time we formed it to do a physical training. It's all online. And it's online with PowerPoint, bespoke audio and bespoke video. So you can literally take the entire course online and then choose to either or do both, take a quiz or send us an assignment, which is quite unusual for this structured type course, that we have a panel, a global panel of public relations, journalism and event management people, because they're effectively the areas that we're working in. And if you're not sure that you've really fully absorbed whatever the topic is, and it could be shooting video with your smartphone, then you can actually do an assignment, create the video, send it to us, and somebody who works in that area will come back and give you really good professional feedback on it.
So I'm assuming that with being all online, you've not been affected by COVID-19 as much as some organisations that have more physical face-to-face training. But have you been affected by COVID-19 in any way, whether negative or positively?
We have, but it's all been very positive. I think in some ways we just managed to launch on time because our product isn't so much geared to individuals, it's geared to business associations, representative groups, bodies that either have SMEs or communications professionals as members. And they have been finding that their actual physical training has completely stopped. And as a member organisation, they still need to provide resources for their members. So in a way, our timing was perfect because we're coming along and saying, from a communications perspective, we can provide you with an annual model that constantly refreshes itself, that doesn't in any way interfere with the physical training that you do. So if the physical training comes back into play in a year's time or 6 months' time, we complement it, we don't compete with it. So in a lot of ways, COVID-19 has been a very positive influence on the business.
Has anything changed in terms of developing new courses for kind of people maybe that are coming into the industry new and looking to join the organisation?
So we've had 3 big developments in the past probably 2 months. The first, and I have to pay credit to you, is that we've become members of EADL, the European Association of Distance Learning, and that's really important to us, to be a member of a recognised group of distance learning professionals. The second is that we've just been endorsed by IPRA, which is the International Public Relations Association. So we're pretty woohoo about that one. I'm very pleased to have their endorsement. And the third that we only learned yesterday is that we have actually won, wait for it, the Gold Stevie for PR innovation. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, the movies in America have the Oscars, and the American Business Association have the Stevies, and it's a gold fella. He's 16 inches high. He's gold plated. He has his hands up in his air like this, and I haven't got him yet, but we've won it for PR Innovation 2020. So we're really, really thrilled with that. Actually, the other part of your question was, have we created any new courses? Not specifically, but what we have done, because the courses are constantly changing and reflecting what's happening in communications. But what we have done is we've created a series of short videos. And the videos are a resource for people in the communications industry, because I've actually been in PR communications training for probably the best part of 30 years now. And I've always operated on a global level. So I have a lot of contacts worldwide. And what we've been doing is reaching out to people and saying, what's your experience in COVID-19? How have you been communicating? What are the challenges that you've been reaching? And we've had a fascinating mix of people that we've spoken to. So I've spoken to people, I spoke to a lady who runs a parish in the United States about how she actually had never had to either shoot video or deal with social media at all, 2020 until now, and suddenly she has to do it. And her parish priest, who said that he never even heard of Zoom until 7 weeks ago, which was really amazing. We've spoken to a university in Pennsylvania, who were one of the first universities in the States to actually close their campus, and they got terrible stick from the media, who said they were overreacting and doing all kinds of things they shouldn't. We've spoken to a refugee organization in Malawi, and they really put perspective on it and say things like, refugees are constantly in lockdown anyway. Our challenge is water and soap and actually getting the message across. How do you communicate in an environment where everybody doesn't have access to television or social media, and it's all done through different leader groups. So if I can reach the leader actually filters down to their people. So fascinating stuff altogether. We've spoken to an advertising agency in New York, and that's been specifically because of COVID, because there were really very different challenges. The world has never faced communications challenges like this before. And we actually spoke to a leadership coach who said that one of the big challenges for leaders is trying to adapt themselves to being at home and working from home and being at a distance. And then how do I still look and behave like a leader to my organization of 5,000, 10,000 people who can no longer meet me, but who need to know that there is a plan in place for the business and we know what we're doing, or even if we don't know what we're doing, we have a pretty good idea of the direction we're going in. So it's been a fascinating development, I must say.
Yeah, I think like you say, a lot of people have moved on to video we've never seen on video online before. And I think when you talk about leaders, and they're quite, their approach is very different. I mean, people might be great leaders in person, but come put them on video and they might fall to pieces. So doing courses on things like that in order to improve their profile can be a great thing, can't it?
And it's actually something they're very uncomfortable with, because even if they had to speak to somebody through the medium of video, they were used to an entire crew turning up. So wherever they were sitting, they had their PR person, and they probably had somebody else who was political messaging, and they had a videographer, and they had somebody who did makeup, and they had a whole team of people around them. So it was like they were in the movies. And now suddenly they're being asked to sit in front of a laptop or a phone and talk to people and do it on their own at a social distance, and they're finding it very difficult. And in fact, the company in New York that I spoke to said that they have pivoted and they've developed a whole new wing of their business pretty much out of COVID-19 to deal with these senior corporate leaders who are just uncomfortable with these messages. And they found that they were spending something like 30 minutes of them speaking about what they would like to communicate with their employees, and then they reduced it down to possibly a minute and a half. Fascinating. And I think actually from a leader's point of view, it has also given them a greater appreciation of how other people are struggling if they're working from home. Because one of the points she made was that some people have adapted really well and enjoy it. And I will be one of the people who's enjoying the lockdown. Not enjoying it, but it's not affecting me in any way, because I've always had an office at home, and I've always had an office which is an office. So to me, there isn't a huge difference in where I'm located, and I can do all of my work by distance anyway. So it's always been familiar to me. But for others, they've never worked at a distance. It has always been meetings or flights or one-to-one, face-to-face, and they're finding it very difficult. And she had this whole, you have to have a look at the video, but I had this whole conversation with her about how different personality types react differently, and some instantly get that other people are under this kind of pressure and they understand, and others think, what else is he or she doing? So they're just watching the television with the laptop. I might as well send them the email now. Why wouldn't they answer me at 10 o'clock at night? So it's a whole new learning curve for them to respect the boundaries that are still there, that they don't see anymore because they're working from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's certain things we're doing during COVID-19 that maybe we're just doing temporarily. But I think things like working from home, learning from home, are things that are going to stay around forever. So people are adapting now, but these are going to be skills they can take forward for the next 5-10 years. Because I don't like the term new normal, but I suppose in this case, that's possibly going to be the new normal.
I think the new normal, the statistics show learning from home, that the number of people who are coming to online learning who have never actually considered online learning before is up by, I think it was 40 or 50%. It was a phenomenal jump. And the thing that we're seeing, and probably all of your members are seeing it, is that people are now, they're at home, they're on social media longer, they have more time to think, and they're doing two things. Either they're looking at, how do I keep my skills from our point of view, from your point of view, how do I keep my skills sharp? So I don't have that bumping into people, having the chats, water cooler moments where somebody says, did you see the difference in influencers? Did you catch that? The other element is that people are finding that they're actually reviewing their lives. So very seriously, they're sitting down and saying, what am I doing? What's all this about? Why am I in this job? I never liked it anyway. I'm just stuck in a rut. Maybe I should actually consider changing my profession or changing my career. And I think that will continue to be a huge influence in the years going forward, because physically colleges and associations will still, I think, for the next 2 or 3 years, have all these social distancing mechanisms in place. So we won't get back to what was the old normal for quite a while to come. So I think online learning, the time for online learning has really arrived.
Have you seen an increase in demand for the PR Training Academy from kind of newcomers who are looking to upskill?
We've seen it in 2 different ways, actually. One is the amount of associations that are joining much faster, because we had started talking to associations and groups last year, and they had been thinking that this will come on board sometime in the summer or sometime when we renew next year, and that's all been ramped forward massively. And in fact, we found that we're doing much more now, because the launches, we had 3 launches that we should have been attending, one in Sydney, one in Chicago, and one in London, and all were cancelled. So we found that we're doing much more in terms of supporting those groups to get the messages out to their members, but they've moved it all much faster forward. And the second element is that we found a lot of people are finding us individually. So we've actually put much more resources into online advertising, particularly in those areas where we're launching. So we're launching in Australia next month, and we've an entire campaign in place now for advertising to the Australian market, because we know that people will start looking at it and saying, even if I'm not a member of the association, I want to join, I want to learn. And the fact, I think too, that it's not, we don't provide long courses, so you're not committing to a huge amount of time. It's 3 hours, and it's 3 hours that we give you the skills that you need in that particular area. And I think it's a more attractive offering for individuals. So we've seen it both in terms of the speed of large member groups joining and the appeal to individuals, which we hadn't expected to be as big as it is, to be honest.
Yeah, so you kind of answered my next question, which is basically, have you changed your message or your communications? And obviously you've identified new markets, so you're putting campaigns out directly to them. So you're acting on this new information and these new markets that you've identified in your messaging.
And in fact, our struggle is to try and figure out how many markets can we cope with at the same time, because I love talking to people. So anybody who says, can you talk to me in whatever country, I'm saying, yes, of course I can. Talk to me. What do we do? And we've a team of 9 people, and I'm pretty much stretching them as much as they can be stretched at the moment. And the challenge is that if you have different organizations in different parts of the world, and you know this well, Chris, every different location has a different way that you need to communicate with them. So they need to receive the message in a different way, or there's a different emphasis that you would have in Germany than you would have in Latvia, than you would have in America, than you would have in Australia. And it's trying to get that right, and it's trying to actually use our resources as best we can and not massively overstretch is our challenge at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously, like you say, you've benefited positively, you've identified all these new markets, but obviously you don't want to spread yourself too thin too quickly. So you're having to kind of find ways of which markets are kind of more appropriate for us, which can we really kind of concentrate on, and which will really improve the business as a whole.
That's exactly it. We're looking at which are the organizations which are the largest. So we've got organizations that we're talking to at the moment who have 200 members. We've one with 1,200. We've one with 2,600. We've one with 12,000. We've one with 20,000. And it's trying to look at which of those organizations should we put a focus on first, obviously the bigger ones. And then if those bigger ones have a hinterland of people who would also be interested, then how much of our resources do we focus in that area? And then when do we say that we really need to park that and let that run away on its own and now move to whatever the next one is? But it's a great challenge. It's a brilliant complaint. We're loving it.
Well, finally, I just wanted to, obviously, the EADL, we're getting interest and members who have previously not really done any distance education, online learning or e-learning. And it's strange, really, because they're looking for a place to start. Some people are thinking I can just take my online, what I do face-to-face, and take that online on a Zoom call. And it doesn't really work like that. So we're trying to increase our kind of advice as to how people can actually adapt and not only provide online learning, but effective online learning. So one of the questions we've been asking people is, if you were talking to someone who was completely new to the world of online learning, what one bit of advice would you give them in order to kind of get them on the right footing?
One bit of advice for learners possibly, and one bit of advice for providers. So the one bit of advice for learners is that it really is very easy. The industry is very well developed, so if you're taking an online course, it really will be an easy and a pleasant experience, but you need to be determined. It's like everything else. If you don't come back to it, nobody's going to run after you and say you didn't finish the course. So you need to be sure that it actually suits your personality style. But online learning is definitely a fantastic option for anybody who's looking at it. From a provider's point of view, I think, and you've mentioned it yourself, the key piece of advice is, this is a very sophisticated, very professional industry. It's not stand in front of a camera and go blah, 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 and tell people all the knowledge that's in your head, because nobody will stand there and listen to it. It's a very sophisticated industry. So if you're coming into it, you need to respect the people who are taking your courses, because they're familiar with television, with video, with social media. They're used to everything being done in a cool, fast, snippy way. And the only way you're going to survive is if you provide them with the same kind of quality experience that they've been used to across other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about keeping them engaged. I suppose you don't have the kind of distractions in a lecture theatre that you do when you're at home with a TV, Netflix, etc. There's a lot going on, so keeping them engaged is incredibly important, isn't it? And a real challenge.
I don't know. I've seen people in lecture theatres sitting there and they're scrolling their feed at the same time, thinking this is really boring, but I need my body to be in this place, but their mind is somewhere else. And that is the big challenge with online learning. People can just leave.
Yeah, I suppose in a lecture theatre, you've got the visual cues, haven't you? You can see when someone's switched off, and you can maybe adapt to that. And having those cues is kind of something people are used to. So when you're talking to a screen, you're just hoping that the person on the other end is kind of still engaged and still learning and not gone on a bike ride.
And it's about looking at how long are they looking at me on the screen, and why are they looking at me for 2 solid minutes on the screen? It's too long. I need to actually edit and splice and put in other footage so that they're still getting the same message. They're still listening to the same voiceover, but it's now become a voiceover rather than somebody sitting there talking to me. I can now hear the same message, but I'm looking at an explanation of what it is they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I just wanted to thank you for your time, Ellen. It's been fantastic learning about you and the PR Training Academy. And I think we've got some fantastic insights there that we can share with our members going forwards. I think what I'll do now is I'm going to pass the baton on to you. For those who don't know Ellen, she is an experienced broadcaster, radio personality, regular TV guests in Ireland. And we're going to carry on this series. Now we're going to speak to our colleagues in Germany, in Holland, in the UK, and much more. And Ellen is going to conduct those interviews in probably a much more professional way than I've managed today. So welcome, Ellen, and hopefully you've enjoyed taking on this series.
I think you've set the bar very high, Chris. I will do my best to follow in your footsteps, and I'm really looking forward to the series. Looking forward to chatting to people about their experiences in online learning.
Essential online training solutions for communications professionals. The PR Training Academy.